Hotep, after Huru. This is General Muti Ajamu-Osagboro. General is my title. Muti Ajamu-Osagboro is my name. I want to pick up from where we left off earlier this morning in City Council. Let me give you a little bit of background of what transpired, and then we can move forward and we can give you, the listeners, all of what's going on, the drama that's unfurling in the city of Philadelphia. This morning I testified before City Council, and in that testimony, they cut me off. The Negress, the majority leader, Catherine something Richmore or Richardson, they cut me off because I asked to be extended additional 3 minutes, the minutes that I was denied last week from her Negro colleague, President Kenyatta Johnson, Council President Kenyatta Johnson. He cut me off or denied me to testify, period, even though I signed up like everybody else. And because he got into a little gangbang with a fellow freedom fighter who goes under the title of freedman, bringing constitutional law to the attentions of City Council and what it all entails in regards to the rights due African people who are the direct descendants of those who were enslaved. So anyway, in doing that, I was in the middle of what I was laying out to show you, based on my colleagues, comrades, and kinfolk that had went before me and laid out everything that our people need to know in the city of Philadelphia, county of Philadelphia, the tri-state area, the tri-county area, and the rest of the country, because what we're talking about is going on all over the country. And the issue is genocide. I mean, genocide through gentrification, correct. All right, now, I read this, so I'm going to read this again. And this is the outline from City Council. Public comments. And it's dealing with bills and resolutions. And so the bill that I wanted to particularly focus on, it was presented by council members Squala and Lazada. Now, I'm not beefing with the bill in and of itself. What I want to focus on is an element that was used in the bill that's being deployed and what it represents in the bigger picture. I'll read the specific portion in which I highlighted, and then we'll go from there. It says, authorizing the Director of Commerce on behalf of the city to execute an agreement with Fishtown Kensington Area Business Improvement District Incorporated relating to the district, and reauthorizing the Fishtown Kensington Area Business Improvement District Incorporated to assess property owners within the district a special property assessment fee to be used in accordance with the approved plan. Now, the operative phrase there is to reauthorize, which means they've been doing it, but for some reason they haven't been following up with it. And then actually what they're talking about. They're talking about making a non-entity, a non-living, breathing human being, a corporation, allowing that corporation to actually, they say assess, but really it's to levy a tax on a breathing, living human being who's a property owner. Now, this example, this deployment within the body of this ordinance or bill is just a small fraction of the overall picture, but it is indicative of them attempting to the process of chipping away through gentrification at the black and brown communities and collaterally speaking, poor white communities as well. And each week we keep seeing these chipping away. The city of Philadelphia right now is in its second trimester, the second portion or the second trimester of abortion, the second trimester of gentrification, gentrifying the whole city. But it's our job to abort that process before it reaches its third trimester and comes to birth and fruition. It's our job to abort that whole scheme and design. Now, Philadelphia is not any more unique than the other cities and the counties and states across the country when it comes to gentrification. The only difference is that Philadelphia is purported to be the cradle of democracy and the cradle of justice. But those of us who live here, we understand two things very clear. Number one, Philadelphia is the cradle of hypocrisy. That's first and foremost. And secondly, Philadelphia is the cradle of injustice. And as goes Philadelphia, so goes the rest of the nation, historically and contemporarily. Though contemporarily it's not viewed as such, but those of us who understand the founding fathers of America who put this thing together, they into symbolism real heavy. And for them, Philadelphia represents the linchpin of this entire edifice called America. Now, what we see, now let's look at the uniqueness of Philadelphia and what's going on in this process of gentrification. That is genocide through gentrification. Just recently, Philadelphia, the black community in Philadelphia was number one in home ownership. And this is just before COVID hit in 2019. Was number one in the nation in black home ownership. Number one. After COVID, it fell off precipitously. And we're going to get into the factors of why it fell off precipitously. But what you need to notice is this. At the same time that black home ownership was number one in the country in Philadelphia, Philadelphia was way down low on the charts in terms of being a poverty city. And now, as black home ownership has plummeted precipitously with that rise, is now Philadelphia is the number one big city, poorest big city in the country. The correlation is undeniable. As black and brown people, particularly black people, home ownership go from one and drops off exponentially, the rise of city of Philadelphia being the number one poorest city in the country. And if those who live in the city, you walk around the city, because we move all around the city. There are 5 parts of Philadelphia, just like there are 5 parts of New York. The 5 boroughs, we have 5 parts of the city. There's the Northeast, there's Germantown, there's West Philly, there's South Philly, and then there's North Philly. Those are the 5 parts. Now, when you hear names other than the ones that I just called, those are terminologies created by so-called developers, who we call undevelopers or underdevelopers, because they underdevelop the black and brown community, or they undevelop the black and brown community, and then push black and brown out and bring white people in. Dr. Walter Rodney wrote a book called How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, and in there he goes into how the Europeans from Europe came into Mother Africa and underdeveloped the entire country through a giant mechanism of gentrification, taking the human resources out, taking the minerals and vitamins and precious gems out, and the monies that it generates, taking it out and leaving the rest of the continent as a husk, just a rotten carcass. And so that's what's going on in Philadelphia. And the individuals involved for it, most of them look just like me. Most of them are Democrats, and most of them are African people. They look like us. They look like they African, but really most of them are Negroes and Negresses. And they are doing everything they can to stop our so-called constitutional rights of free speech, to stop our constitutional rights of due process, our constitutional rights of equal protection under the law, and all of these other things. Had not these blackface white supremacists been in city council and in the mayor's office, the people involved, had they not looked like the way that they do, we would be able to identify it with what it is right off the bat and say, oh, this is a white supremacist ploy to just push black and brown people out and bring these white folks in. And in Philadelphia, everywhere you look, where there were formerly black and brown people, predominantly black and brown people, they've now pushed all of them out and brought white people in. In the section where my son's mother was born and raised, is unofficially called Lowland Moroccos, Highland Moroccos. Well, that was predominantly black and a few sprinkling of brown. They pushed all of those people out and brought all these white people in. They build all of these developments. When she paid bought her home like in the 60s or the 50s, she paid something like $13,000 for the home, $17,000 for the home. Now those homes go for anywhere from, they start at $375,000 and they could go up to anywhere to $500,000. And nobody in that area can afford that but white folks who are wealthy. And so when you go through this area, you see a spattering of black people, mostly elderly people who still own their homes. And they're doing everything they can to push them out. They didn't offer to buy their homes, but they've denied it. And it seems that their children are not carrying the legacy of home ownership and all of what you can do to generate generational wealth through your home. And so what we're going to do is teach them and show them how to guard their elders, their mothers, their fathers, their grandfathers, and their grandmothers' property or properties, because they're being stole. These properties are being stole right from under their feet through multiple ways, all crafted and created by city council and in tag team with the mayor's office. There are other sections in Philadelphia, like formerly called, for those who are not in Philadelphia, it's a section in West Philadelphia used to be called the Black Bottom. It's all black people. Now it's all white. They pushed all the black and the few brown people that existed there. They pushed them out. And when you go there now, it's all white people. They build all of these super structures, these condominiums, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Brought all these white folks in and pushed all the black. And that's going on all over the entire city. And we the first to tell you that it's going on all across the country. We seen this battle go on in New York, in Brooklyn, dealing with the brownstones. It's going on in Chicago, Detroit, California, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so today, what we're saying with City Council Philadelphia, it's a template for the rest of the country. And we're going to provide that counter template to tear that structure down so that black and brown people can invest more in home ownership, so we can get black home ownership back up to #1 in the country and drop from #1 poorest city to down to maybe the last one. And how we do that is understanding having an education in financial literacy, and also understanding the treason being committed by these blackface white supremacists in city council and in the mayor's office. How they're working in lockstep with white supremacy behind the scenes to devalue, deneuter, destroy black and brown people with a specific focus on African people. And this is why we take to city council every Thursday to sound the alarm, because we are in a state of emergency and folks don't know it. So we're here to bring the information, we're here to teach them, and we're here to rally the troops and bring together the many, many factions of organizations, grassroots organizers, strategizers, bring them together and create what we calling a super coalition so that we can move against anything that harms the black and brown community via an injustice. Because as it stands now, black and brown people and poor white people are operating in silos. And so what we want to do is call them out of them silos, because the truth is they've been put in silos and they think they volunteered to operate and function in these silos. But the truth is there's a common thread of oppression tied around all of us. And so what we have to do is cut that thread and voluntarily stay together and work and operate together by sharing our resources, by sharing our knowledge, by sharing our experiences of the law, of how things operate politically, culturally, socially, and intellectually, and religiously. More so focused on the spirituality element of it than the religiosity element, because religiosity creeps and promotes separation. So that's where we at. And so every week, we're going to let you know about these handkerchief head, chicken and biscuit Negroes and Negresses. Like last week, it was Council President Kenyatta Johnson on some Negro-ish. And then this week, it was Council Majority Leader Cafferty. I forget her middle name, but her last name is Gilmore. She was on some Negro-ish. Super Negress, to silence the voices of dissent, to silence those who are trying to educate the public as to the Philadelphia public, the Pennsylvania public, and the American public on what they are doing in Philadelphia, the crimes that they are committing by being anti-constitutional. And one last point, and then we out. You heard a lot now. We seen what happened in this election that came by on Tuesday. They calling it a red wave. No, it wasn't. It was Bloody Tuesday. They slaughtered the Democrats. And there are many, many reasons why the Democrats were slaughtered on the federal level, where the Republicans won the White House, the Senate, and the House. And at some other time in this series, this John Life is Real series, we're going to go into what actually happened and why these Negroes is running scared. Now, why all of our people now are so grief-stricken and heartbroken because they invested all of these things into the Democratic Party. Now, mind you, don't get fooled. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party are the same. They're ran like plantations. So don't think that I'm an advocate for the Republican Party no more than I am for the Democratic Party. I'm an advocate for African people. I'm an advocate for black and brown people. I'm an advocate for poor whites who all are disenfranchised and victimized by this process of gentrification or genocide by gentrification in the city of Philadelphia. So in knowing what we know now, we're going to teach, we're going to enlighten, we're going to strategize, we're going to organize, we're going to mobilize until we push these Negroes and Negresses out, these blackface white supremacists, because we have to call them what they are and identify them, because most of our people are fooled by these handkerchief head Negroes. And we're going to call them out. So we're going to go every week to city council and we're going to expose these bills and how these bills are connected to the fine inner workings of the process of gentrification. And just one quick little thing, and then we out for real. One of the things that they're doing right now is there are many, many black landlords and homeowners and property owners. They love African people. They look out for the cookout. They organize. They in the streets. But what you hear from these Europeans who trying to hypnotize our ignorant people that the only word coming out of their mouth is slumlord. And so you got these big corporations who are truly slumlords, but these Negroes and these so-called liberals, these vicious handkerchief head liberals, they are pushing an agenda that makes you think that the Democrats are going to save you from the boogeyman, and they the boogeyman themselves. They in tandem. It is a good cop, bad cop tandem. And in the good cop, bad cop tandem, the bad cop lets you know that he hates your guts. And the good cop pretends that he likes you and that he's not really with the bad cop. And of the two in that tandem, the worst cop of those two is the good cop. Because the good cop is the liar, and they make you drop your guard, win you over, your trust, and then punch you in the face. And both of them are working to slide them silver handcuffs on you and take you back to the plantation or put you on the plantation. So this is what we're doing, and this is how we moving, and this is how we working. And we are organizing. We're on the ground, and we're going to vote most of them out. If they don't move with our interests, because it's about our interests. We don't have permanent friends. We don't have permanent enemies. We have permanent interests. And whoever supports our interests, we will back them and they will win. Whoever is against our interests is our enemy. And we will back their opponent and their opponent will win. So we don't care about the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. But whoever shows interest in our interests, in our agenda, we going to ride. We're going to push them and they're going to win. Because as it stands now, they are playing us like a Stradivarius. Good cop, bad cop. And we're going to break and expose all of that. So, without further ado, Uhuru Nikasi, freedom is work. Harambe, 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 Harambe. That's Kiswahili for let's pull together. Uhuru Nikasi, freedom is work. Uhuru Sasa Dada Ndugu. Freedom now, sisters and brothers. Hotep, General Muti, this is John Life is Real, the series.